Hey everybody, and thanks for tuning in for another episode of Japan Economics News. So it's been a long time since we did this last time. I have many interesting articles for today, so without further rambling, let's go into it. So as always, we will start this by looking at the Nikkei Index here. Let's take 6 months for now. And after the March dip, we have pretty much recovered and then just stagnated. And in the recent few days, we have started going down again. Whether this is just normal market fluctuations or something else will be seen in the next few weeks. So let's just go to the first article. And I think it is appropriate to start this by looking at the corona situation, which unfortunately have taken a turn for the worse in Japan. And this article shows the new confirmed coronavirus cases. The gray represents the Tokyo area, the red is the Kansai area, and then the orange is everywhere else. So compared to the spring, we have seen a lot more confirmed cases everywhere, especially Kansai area. You can see the red getting bigger here. So it is really spreading in Japan right now. Unfortunately, some prefectures that are being named here are, well, Osaka and Aichi Prefecture, Fukuoka Prefecture. Here's a quote from the governor of Osaka, who said that we should protect our elderly and people with comorbidities so they won't get infected. And also he said that the medical system, the medical facilities are right now not close to being overrun. So apparently they have capacity, which is good. But still he said that they are not thinking of putting in restrictions like we did in the spring. I think the biggest reason for that is because nobody has the money to do that anymore. When they did it initially, they paid kind of like a cooperation grant to businesses that closed their doors for a month or two. But as the metropolis of Tokyo and other prefectures have exhausted their funds, it's not an option anymore. So they kind of have to hope for the best. And lastly, there is a mention about the Go To Travel campaign, which we will talk in a second. And this is a much more recent article about the coronavirus cases in Tokyo. And this is only represented Tokyo. We had 463 new confirmed cases today, the 31st of July. So it is not going the right direction, as you can see here. It is definitely a second wave, or I guess you could call it an extension of the first wave, whatever you want to call it. It's not good. 463 cases that were confirmed, 332 were between the ages of 20 and 30. Between 20 and 40, which was 70%. So it seems like many younger people are being infected with this virus. Of course, they always have to mention that the virus is spreading mainly in so-called red light district areas with some prostitution and kyabakuras. Kyabakura is kind of, it's not prostitution per se, but it's kind of when you have women sit with you at the table, you pay for their drinks or whatever. You know what I'm saying. So they always mention that those are the places that the new cases are being concentrated at, which is kind of dubious, as I don't think the virus can distinguish between so-called socially accepted places and the ones that are not. I think that's about the coronavirus. In the second article, they are talking about some measurements that they are thinking about to curb these new infections. And as I mentioned, they don't really have any more funds to give to businesses to keep their doors shut. So they are asking them to reduce their business hours, apparently. Let's go to the next one. So in other news, Japan is starting the Go To campaign. And I talked about the Go To campaign in my previous videos. Basically what it boils down to is the government is paying you money to go out and spend. Maybe you want to go to a hotel for a vacation, or you want to go to a restaurant to eat, to an event, whatever. So they started this Go To Travel, where the government can pay 50% of your vacation. So if you wanted to do domestic vacation in Japan, now is your chance. And initially it was supposed to be the whole country, but now, because they want to be responsible, they are leaving Tokyo out of it, because Tokyo is the worst place that is hit by the coronavirus. So if you are living in Tokyo, you can't get the discount, but you can take the vacation without the discount if you want. And if you want to take a vacation in Tokyo, then you are also not eligible for the discount. But everybody else, go have fun. And at least they can get their cancellation fees reimbursed by the government. People were counting on the government paying for their vacation, so they just reserved it, but now they can't get the discount, so you can get your cancellation fee paid at least. So yeah, it was started. The whole campaign went live 22nd of this month, and still I'm not sure how you even kind of apply for the 50% discount. They are kind of thinking while they are doing this. Yep. I also put a link of the whole go-to travel guidelines. Unfortunately, it is only in Japanese, but you can copy and paste it into a translator if you want to find out the details. The next article is about retail stock investing. So I think that not only in US stock markets or European stock markets, but also in Japanese stock markets, more and more retail investors, in other words, mama and papa investors, are joining in the markets. And I have heard, I think it was a Wall Street article that said that the whole market is being driven by these people right now. And that's never a good thing when you look at history. It's usually those times when the shoe shining boy is giving stock hints, or the taxi driver is giving you some hot tips on what stock to buy. Those are usually the times when you should get out of the market. And we see this in Japan right now as well. This article is pretty much about that. There's some speculation about individual stock names, what people are buying, and it is also quoted here that one big reason why the people are positive is because of the Federal Reserve that has decided to extend the 0% interest rate policy until the year 2022. That is said here, yeah. So people are very positive, and they are, I don't know, I guess you could call it irrational exuberance if you wanted to, but we will see what happens with that later. Personally, I'm not so optimistic on stocks right now, and one reason I can show you is the Buffett indicator. And I actually compiled the Buffett indicator for Japanese stocks today, and it shows here the blue line is the nominal GDP by year, starting from 1994, and the orange line is the total market cap, so all of Japanese stocks combined during that year. So when you take the total market cap and divide it by the nominal GDP of that year, you get the so-called Buffett indicator, and you get this in percentages. So the higher the percentage, it means the stock market cap is much higher than the GDP. And usually when the stock market cap is higher than the GDP, it means that the stocks are much more highly valued compared to the real state of the economy. So I'm not saying that this graph is perfect by any means, but I compared it to the other people's chart and it was very similar. So here you can see right now we are hovering around 120%. So this would mean that we are highly overvalued when it comes to stocks, in Japanese stocks. And I think it is even more overvalued when you look at the US stocks, especially the technology stocks. But it is only one indicator to look at stocks. And that is that, yeah. Let's go to the next one. Another sign of times when it comes to retail investors getting into stocks is the rise of the so-called stock gurus, who you see on YouTube making all kind of stock predictions and recommendations on what you should do. And this is just an example of this kind of stock guru who does a channel in Japan. It's called Zeppi, I think. I watched some of his videos and, well, it is a hype channel. What can you say? They are just kind of giving very easy general information about what you should buy and sell. And it kind of reminds me of the 1929. Of course, I wasn't alive back then, but I have heard that during the time when the stock speculation was reaching its peak, even like shoe shining boys were giving stock information, or taxi drivers might give you some tips on what to buy. So we might be living those times right now, only time will tell. Interesting nevertheless. So let's go to the next one. The next article is about the cashless payments, which I have talked about often in my previous videos. And if you haven't heard, Japan's government is trying to transform their country into a cashless society where people would pay for things by cashless options instead of using cash. And there are many reasons for this. Some reasons are brought much more forward than the so-called real reasons. Nevertheless, the motivations, you can see the situation of cashless paying here. This upper chart, this upper part here is the last year's. So last year, the gray area, which represents cash, is considerably larger than this year. So you can see that people have started to move into cashless options. And this part, I think, means, this is the credit and debit card. So it has increased a little bit compared to last year. And then this part here is like a prepaid card. In Japan, we have some prepaid cards called Suica, Waon, and others, which you just go to a machine and then you can charge your cash into the card and use that to pay. And then these smaller areas here represents the mobile paying applications, for example. I think I mentioned in my earlier videos how many mobile paying applications there are. There's Line Pay, PayPay, Rakuten Pay. There's a ton of applications you can use to for mobile paying. But right now it seems that PayPay is the one that is winning, and you can see here it has the biggest share. And I myself, when I go shopping, this is the one I most often see when a store has a mobile paying option. It is always PayPay. So I don't know how they got all those partnerships, but they seem to be winning this war. And then there is some data from the Ministry of Economics, and they say that 1,150,000 shops have decided to join their cashless program, and 27% of those have implemented new cashless paying options. And they incentivize this by giving as much as 5% cash back to users who use these cashless options. So there is an incentive to use cashless payment. And then there's the Mina points, which I also talked about in my previous video. This is being done directly by the government, and they are giving these Mina points to people who link their My Number card with a cashless payment option that you can choose. And they are saying that it is not recording any of your personal information and your privacy is protected, but it would be very simple to flip the switch and collect all your purchase data, whatever you purchase, wherever you purchase, when you purchase. So I don't like the idea of that myself. And let's go to the next one. So the next article is about the stress on mortgages that we have been seeing in the last not only last few weeks, but even longer term. And it is quoted here that these mortgages and the stress, the people who are having stress with mortgages, is centered around people in their 20s and 30s, and the corona being the reason for their loss of revenue, which then impacts on their ability to pay these mortgages. So in recent years, before the corona hassle, many people took mortgages and they were being distributed more and more to younger people. It is quoted here that the reason for this was the low interest rates. You may have heard of the super low interest rates and even negative interest rate in Japan, and also the tax incentives that people did get for taking mortgages. And this apparently has resulted in too many mortgages being loaned. And it is then quoted by some 30-year-old guy living in Tokyo that he is trying to pay his mortgage, and he had to make it from 30-year to 35-year schedule for the whole mortgage to pay off. By doing that, he could reduce the monthly payment by about $100. But then the additional amount that he has to pay for the full mortgage is increased by several $1,000s. So in the end, he will lose. But it is said here that many people are doing similar things because they have to make ends meet right now. And for some, the option is to reduce the mortgage payments to only paying the amount of interest, so they are not paying back the principal anymore. I don't know for how long they can do these kinds of arrangements, but it seems to be the only option for many right now. And here is an interesting chart about the outstanding mortgages and how they have been increasing for each age group. So this blue line here would be people under 29-year-olds. So you can see it has increased pretty rapidly ever since 2013, it seemed. So also 2013 is the year that the Bank of Japan started their ultra low interest rate policy and the quantitative easing, money pumping, money printing. So maybe there's some coincidence there, who knows. Yeah, about the tax incentive, there's an example here that let's say you make a new mortgage, you would then get 1% deducted from your whole outstanding mortgage by the end of the year. So if your interest rate is less than 1%, you would be in profits, so to speak, because you can deduct your taxes. So that's a good incentive for many people to take a mortgage, and that's what they did. And that is all about that. The next one is kind of connected to the last article. It is this is about the reasons why people can't pay their mortgages. It's because many people are being furloughed, laid off, whatever you want to call it. And 10,000 people a month, it says here, has been laid off. And this has been going on for some time now. This chart here shows going from May 29th to July 29th. And this represents the people being laid off because of corona reasons. So I would assume that they are in the tourism industry and the manufacturing industry said here. So they are the people being most heavily impacted by the corona. And this is actually a much more recent article. This article is from today, so I wanted to show you this as well. And this is from the month of June. And the unemployment rate of June was 2.8%, which is a lot in Japan's scale. You can see here how it has moved. So the usual would be something like 2.3. So right now it is very high compared to so-called normal times. The last article I wanted to show you is quite interesting. I talked about in my last video about how everybody who lives in Japan have gotten this assistance grant. I'm not sure what stimulus check. Yeah, that's the word. So everybody got $1,000. So then 100,000 yen. And people are obviously depositing it, or they're being deposited automatically to their bank accounts. And these big banks are troubled by all this money rushing into them. So the reason why these banks are having trouble with this money is the way the bank's deposit work with the Bank of Japan. And the Bank of Japan made a rule that the more money these city banks or so-called commercial banks are holding deposits with Bank of Japan, the more they hold with the Bank of Japan, the less they get interest on those deposits. So that is to kind of encourage these commercial banks to lend money to citizens and to businesses to encourage spending and economic activity. But obviously the banks do what they do, and if they have a lot of deposits with the Bank of Japan, then the interest rates can go to minus. So they actually have this kind of a 3-step system where if you go over a certain threshold, then the interest rate flips into minus. So I think it's 0.1%, 0%, and then minus 0.1%. So depending on the amount you have. And right now the banks are kind of teetering on the threshold where it goes to the minus, which means that they will have to pay the Bank of Japan to keep their deposits there. And because of this 100,000 yen stimulus checks, this threshold I think it is being met with some banks. So they are losing money just by having these deposits. And I think that some of the banks are trying to recoup these losses by implementing higher commissions on their customers. Just speaking personally, the bank I use, or one of the banks I use, is the Yokohama Bank, and lately they started putting commissions on just doing transfers to the same bank. So if I do a transfer to somebody who's also using Yokohama Bank, it used to be free, but now I have to pay about $2 every time I do it. So yeah, they are not in a good position, the banks right now. Yep, even the article is quoted here to say that they are also thinking of implementing fees just to keep your deposit there. So then they would take the minus part, they would take the minus interest rate from their customers. So basically you have to pay the bank to keep your money deposited there, if this goes through. So yeah, these are the articles I have for you today, and I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.